Welcome to the Sexual Intelligence Podcast. Get ready to have candid conversations as we unravel the layers of human intimacy. It's time to have that conversation. Let's think together and talk together so that we can expand the conversation with like-minded and non-like-minded people. In today's podcast, we will explore several main influences in our life that send mixed messages and cause sexual confusion. Now your host, Marguerite Cravat.
Today's commentary in our Sexual Intelligence podcast is about the mixed messages we received as children, especially about sex. No one prepared our parents for a sex life, so they didn't know how to prepare us. And that's very unfortunate because bad things happen to kids. And when it does, they don't have the words to tell someone. So they stay silent, push it down, and suffer. Then, as an adult, those hidden memories and bad feelings keep popping up and disturbing us and creating havoc in our emotional life. Today, we're going to explore the sources of those mixed messages and the influence they had on us. When it comes to sexual intelligence, in many ways, we're highly intelligent, and in many other ways, we are not. In today's world, we're so confused that we don't even know how to define a woman. And the reason we're so confused is because we're in the process of redefining everything. We're in the midst of the big reset. Our world is changing. Old ways and new ways are in conflict. That's why our sexuality is so confusing today. We are stuck in between two worlds. Let's have some fun and see if we can unconfuse ourselves. It was Socrates who said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." And a few thousand years later, Carl Jung said, "It's better not to lie. But if you do, don't lie to yourself." So, introspection and truth are essential tools needed for the journey to self-awareness. And you cannot be sexually intelligent if you are not self-aware. In literature, we're taught to study characters from three main perspectives. What does the character say about himself? What do other people say about him? And how does the character behave, especially under stress or unusual circumstances? So you can apply that rule when you study your own personality and character. Your journey to self-discovery is a lifelong process because you are a unique, always evolving human being. To begin this journey, let's think about things. Things like, why does our world seem so perfect to other people, yet so dismal to us? And how is it that people have it all, and I mean everything, looks, money, fame, respect, yet they kill themselves? Why do we pretend to be so perfect on the outside, yet we are so unsettled on the inside? On the surface, we just cope, but below the surface, we are disturbed. What happened to us? From the moment we were born to our very last breath, we will be influenced in innumerable ways by innumerable people. Some people will be good for us and others not. Some people were raised by Father Knows Best parents and others came from the Manson family. Some parents can be saintly and others can be downright deadly. Some parents are going to behave so poorly that their children will spend their entire life healing from their disappointing and traumatic childhood. Our childhood days are programmed into our mind forever. No matter what kind of family you come from, your life inside that family has a lot to do with a long-lasting imprint on you. And what you believe and how you behave has a lot to do with what happened to you in your childhood. Since our sexuality is a major part of who we are, let's be clear about what it is. Sexuality is not only about having sexual relations, but it's also about how we express our beliefs, our thoughts, our feelings, what our attitude is, and our attractions toward other people. Along the way in life, we develop our own unique sexual personality and a sexual character. And our personality and character dictates how we behave and how we feel about our behavior. Our personality is what we show to the world. Our character is more about how we act in the world. Character is about our values, morals, and ethics. It's important to truly understand that personality is not character. A lot of people don't separate the two ideas, and that's what con artists and salespeople are depending on. Ted Bundy used his charming personality to make women feel safe as he lured them in so he could rape and murder them. And most con artists, perverts, and criminals, one of our main contributors to our sexual personality is how we're introduced to sex. That experience has a lasting effect on how our sexual identity develops. If you were traumatized as a child by an adult who used you as a sex object, even if it was only once, you're probably going to be very disturbed inside because of what happened to you. Whereas, if you discover sexuality on your own through the normal process of exploring, that does not mean you're not going to have sexual issues. It just means you'll probably have less. We all have different needs. Some people are satisfied with one special person, and other people, oh my God, they need a whole team. Some people only need each other, while others need accessories and acrobatic equipment. When it comes to sexuality, you absolutely never, ever know what's below the surface of someone's sexuality. When it comes to how healthy or unhealthy we are as a society, all we have to do is take a look at our sex scandals. Lots of mixed messages there. There isn't one day that goes by that we are not hit with another earth. Sex is very bold and outspoken today, and people are responding to the forbidden in even bolder ways. People are no longer ashamed of their behavior. They own it, they market it, and they make a profit from it. Kim Kardashian jump-started her fame from a sex tape. And today she's a billionaire, and she taught her sisters how to be billionaires. And she's not the only one who started that way. In today's world, when someone is arrested, they smile or smirk in the mugshot. People defend their bad behavior as being normal. So we have to ask ourselves, what is normal? And whatever you thought it was, the meter for normal has shifted. We have so much new vocabulary. I mean, how many pronouns do we have for gender now? And what about a throuple? What's wrong with the old term? It's a lot prettier sounding. Ménage à trois. One of the most disturbing new phrases is minor attracted people. MAPS. I say disturbing because we used to call them pedophiles. So I'm wondering, when did it become okay for adults to have sex with kids? Wait till you hear this. Recently in Virginia, a second grade girl gave oral sex to a second grade boy in a classroom full of students. A second grader. I don't know if you know who Susanna Gibson is, but she's a beautiful, articulate woman running for a political office. She was, during her campaign, outed for having sex with her husband online for money. Well, she was kind of outraged, and she continued to run after being outed and was angry when she was criticized for it. Katie Hill is another politician who got caught up in a sex scandal, all because she enjoyed a throuple with her female campaign staffer. When she was outed, she stood strong, but eventually she was pressured into resigning. And sex scandals are also in the halls of universities. You're going to like this one. Chancellor and professor of the University of Wisconsin at La Crosse, his name is Joe Gao, was recently suspended, all because it came to light that he had an online vegan cooking show. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But after he cooked the meals and then ate them with his wife, he would have sex with his wife and a porn star. Now he's suing the university over his wrongful termination. Also, celebrity and mother Denise Richards, she's the ex-wife of Charlie Sheen, she collaborates with her young daughter Sammy Sheen on their adult website on OnlyFans. And she's very quick to defend herself when she's criticized for it. And what about Hollywood? It's a sex scandal factory. Just look at the last couple of doozies we've had to face. Harvey Weinstein, an Academy Award-winning producer, well, he sits in prison for rape. Armie Hammer, who starred in The Social Network, he was accused of sexual abuse and cannibalism. Kevin Spacey, he faced trial over 9 charges of sexual abuse, but he was acquitted. Bill Cosby, everybody's favorite dad, the Jell-O guy, he was accused of drugging women and then raping them, and the list goes on and on and on. You don't have to be famous to be caught up in a scandal, but once the scandal hits, you will be famous, or should I say, infamous. In 1993, there was a huge scandal when a woman fought back against her raping husband and cut his penis off. Lorena Bobbitt had to go to trial but was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Her nightmare of 4 years of physical and sexual abuse drove her crazy, literally. And Mary Kay Letourneau, she was another person who became infamous. In 1996, she was 34 years old and married with 4 children. That's when she was arrested for having sex in her car with her 12-year-old student. She went to prison, and in prison, she had his baby. And when she got out of prison, they got married. Lots of scandals involve very highly respected people. Even our image of beauty itself is being challenged. Our advertising is teaching us that women of all sizes and men of all types are sexual beings who need to be appreciated for their particular brand of sexy. In today's world, you don't have to be thin and perfect to be considered beautiful and wanted. Beauty itself is erotic. When King Kong saw the beautiful tiny blonde, even though he couldn't have her, he lusted over her. And so did the audience, because beauty is erotic. Every day, our senses are being overwhelmed with images of beautiful faces, with puckered lips, tousled hair blowing in the wind, full breasts bulging out of tops, legs that sashay across a marble floor. The ads seduce us and charge us up. Never since the beginning of time have we been so inundated with sexual stimuli. It comes at us from every conceivable direction, and we love it. The digital world has put us into a full-blown paradigm shift. Sexual mores in America are drastically changing, and for some, that's very scary. This shift that we're experiencing today, it's going to reverberate through history for many generations to come. We are the programmers of the future world. Our beliefs and behaviors are being imprinted into the minds of the young. It's a never-ending cycle, a continual loop. That's the matrix that we're living in. When a paradigm shift happens, sometimes it's so big that society as we know it collapses, and the world is shaken to its core with change. We had a bit of a mini paradigm shift during the age of COVID, and it has shifted many times before that. We can go all the way back to 1543 and before, but this is when Copernicus published work that claimed the sun was the center of the universe. That seems very benign to us, but that belief was so disruptive to the current beliefs that to espouse the idea was punishable by prison. And Copernicus was not punished for his work because, unfortunately, he died shortly after his writings were released. But 100 years later, in 1633, that theory was still punishable by prison. Galileo published his work espousing the same belief, and he was convicted of heresy and sentenced to life in prison. This new thinking that Copernicus and Galileo were advocating created a shift in the entire world. That's what a paradigm shift does. It changes our entire foundation. And what about the giant paradigm shift when we leapt from using animals for transportation to all of a sudden driving electric cars and probing Mars? And not too long ago, our mail used to take months to reach its destination by horse. But now we just push a button and voila, it instantly appears before us on a screen. Once our only nightlight was the moon or fire, then suddenly we just flipped a switch and the entire world was lit up. Could it be that we are experiencing another major paradigm shift? In the words of Carrie Bradshaw, and just like that, the world changed. The problem is that these paradigm shifts cause long periods of social unrest. People are caught between two worlds. Some people scream and fight and want the old world as it was, and some people embrace and invite the new world that they're hoping for. Today, some people call this experience a shift in dimensions. The 3D world is the world behind us, and the 5D world is the world ahead of us. Each paradigm shift causes a disruption in the status quo, and we go through a long period of adjustment which takes several generations. And by the time we become adjusted to the new world, it shifts again. The old world and the new world becomes a jumbled mess of confusion in our life because we're being influenced by voices of the past and voices of the future. And that causes a lot of confusion because we're getting so many mixed messages. Today, we have more complexity and diversity in our sexuality than the generations before us. Today, we are much more informed and know that when it comes to our human sexuality, there are dark forces around it. In just about every generation and in just about every family, there was the creepy uncle. But in today's world, it's the creepy everybody. We have learned that it's not only the creepy uncle to watch out for, but also the pious priest, the saintly mother or grandmother, or the jolly neighbor who is the best dad in the neighborhood. There are dark shadows lurking in the most innocuous places. Deep inside us is a hidden force that drives our feelings, beliefs, and behaviors. That hidden force is our subconscious, and our subconscious has been influenced by many sources outside of us, but none more profoundly than our family. The family has influenced us in ways we are not even aware of, and I'm not talking about the immediate family of mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, and cousins. I'm talking about generations going way back to the beginning of time. When it comes to our human sexual development, we need to look at the belief system of those around us. How we feel about our personal sexual development depends upon the environment of our youth. Our family have imposed their sexual expectations upon us. If we don't live up to their expectations, we're shamed. And shame is a horrible feeling to live with. Parents are our first and main teachers. 90% of a child's brain develops by age 5. So that means that the first and most dominant influence throughout our entire life is our family. Mom, dad, siblings, anybody living and coming and going in the household. If we have dark family secrets, even if we don't know about them, they will flow in these silent undercurrents and produce these enormous disruptions in our psyche. As children, our psyche is very delicate. We have no experience to draw from, and we don't yet know how to reason well. As children, we are very, very vulnerable. If we had bad childhood experiences and are unable to process the experience by talking with someone, then those bad experiences can get buried deep into our subconscious and cause us trouble our entire life. In those first formative years, our little baby brain is being imprinted with a program of what to believe, how to think, what to feel, and how to behave. And very unfortunately, we are at risk to duplicate good and bad experiences because as children, we act from learned behavior. We mimic what we experience because it's very familiar to us. And familiarity, that creates comfort. What we're familiar with in our childhood often recurs throughout our life. Patterns repeat themselves. That's why people who experienced violence, drug addiction, deception, and other bad influences in the home as a child often experience the same problems in their adult life. Unfortunately, if your family has been passing down dysfunction, it has probably been compounding through the generations. Each generation leaves an imprint. And, unfortunately, it's up to us to clean up the mess. Let's look at some of those voices of the past and how we were influenced by them. We can begin with the 20th century. They are still a large part of our population. They were born between 1925 and 1945. They experienced the Great Depression and World War II. And they were known for very traditional values, hard work, and American loyalty. When it came to their sexual identity, women were divided into two groups, good girls and bad girls. Good girls married right after school, had babies, kept a good home, and took care of the kids and the husband. And bad girls, they had all the fun. But they suffered because of it. It was not common back then for women to live outside of what was socially acceptable. Women were not yet free. Men had one identity. They were in charge. This was the 20th century generation, and there were three distinct social classes: wealthy, middle class, and working class. In all three classes, people mostly lived the same structured lifestyle. Women stayed at home and took care of the house and the kids. The dad went to work 9 to 5. Dinner and bedtime were on a set schedule. This matrix worked for a very long time. But with the onset of the 21st century, the COVID lockdowns, and the mindset of millennials, the matrix is shifting, and many people are no longer happy with the status quo. About 1 month before my mother was born, on August 18th, 1920, the 19th Amendment guaranteed women the right to vote. I was very proud of the fact that my mother was born free. It's hard to imagine that there was a time not so long ago that women had so few rights that we had to fight 7 long decades just to be able to vote. The women who fought for our voting rights were some amazing liberated chicks for their time. They ushered in a new brazen world for women. They smoked cigarettes in public, started wearing pants. That was outrageous. They cut their hair super short, and for the first time, they had a voice. Not a loud one, but in time, that would change. Some people of this generation handed down the belief of gender equality, and this belief is still with us to this day, and others handed down the idea that a woman's place was in the kitchen, and that belief is still with us to this day. So yes, I believe we are given mixed messages. After my mom's generation came my generation, the best and the coolest of them all. The baby boomers. We were born between 1946 and 1964. It was a generation of huge changes. In the 50s, women were mostly very feminine. They acted like ladies, polite, demure, and submissive. And they dressed like ladies, always in dresses and with little hats and little gloves and sexy little spiked high heels. But there was a major shift in identity in the 60s when women like Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem arrived on the scene. And just like that, women weren't so sugar and spice and everything nice anymore. It was a quantum shift, and suddenly women were in your face, activists who burned their bras in protest and fought for equal rights at work and at home. A major shift had just erupted. Women were gaining power, and we were a force to be dealt with. The fight for equal rights set in motion the path for women getting better jobs and making more money, and in no time at all, women had the audacity to become CEOs, business owners, politicians, and even billionaires. It was the beginning of the end for men. While all this shifting and changing was happening in the world, in the bedroom there was another revolution taking place, the sexual revolution. The pill hit the market and suddenly people could have sex without consequences. And the pendulum swung completely out of control, and that's when sex became a sport. It was the generation of Woodstock, Deep Throat, the Happy Hooker, the Kinsey Report, and lots of free love. The old mental programs, the old matrix was crumbling. Millennials were born 1981 to 1996, and this generation was born into the big dot-com explosion. Socially, this generation easily embraced diversity because their boomer hippie parents and grandparents taught them to be socially conscious. And social media created a platform for them to voice their opinions and to talk to each other. Talking wasn't the only thing they were doing with their new digital platforms. They were sexting and watching porn without restrictions. Sexually, this generation is very accepting. In addition to their hippie parents and grandparents, they have friends who are openly gay, so they are supportive of the gay community. Many of them come from divorced parents, so they understand that their parents have a sex life. They have seen every kind of porn known to mankind, so they know that sex is not just one way. They live with biracial, multi-religious, blended families. The influencers in their life were expanding their minds. Generation Z were born around 1995 to 2012. They grew up much like the millennials, only they were never introduced to technology. They didn't know a world without it. They learned technology before their ABCs. They're much like millennials with a very accepting attitude. However, gender dysphoria seems to be a new crisis they are dealing with, so they have quite a struggle ahead of them. From generation to generation, the family hands down the inner framework of our sexual beliefs and expectations. That framework can be a treasured heirloom or a heavy albatross. It depends on your teachers. If you don't feel good about yourself, examine the world you were born into and the beliefs of those who raised you. You may be acting according to a really messed up belief system based on false and destructive habits that may be in desperate need of an upgrade. What about your friends? Have you ever thought about the influence your friends have on you or you on them? Peer pressure is a real thing. As a teen, if our friends were having sex, we felt the need to have sex. It's normal to want to keep up with group norms in order to be accepted in your circle. Friends can help you, and you have to watch out because they can also destroy you. The friends you choose have an impact on your quality of life. Your friends are your social life, and your social life is one of the biggest aspects of you. Friends are the group of people that we share our sexual secrets with. Or sometimes our friends are the sexual secret. We are much more open with our friends because our friends don't judge. Our friends open doors for life experiences. Friends give us the courage to show off and be brave. Friends give us freedom to explore. Our friends are a large part of our development in life. They influence us greatly. Friends can make your life better, or they can literally destroy it. So we must choose wisely because they do have a big influence on how we develop. And what about the influence of media? Media is a sly, deceitful devil. Media has a purpose. It calls us to action. It wants us to buy something, think something, vote something, be something. It's a huge, one-eyed, manipulating monster. Media is the driver of modern behavior. Media tells us what is trendy and cool. Media even interjects new words, phrases, and meanings into our vocabulary. Media tells us what is acceptable and what is not. We are barraged by the media 24/7, 365. It never stops, and most of us, we just love it. Media fills up our day. We can't get enough. Its messages are flashing upon our brain and filling it with content day and night. Some people believe that media is corrupting the minds of the youth. The lyrics in rap music causes violence. Advertising sets unrealistic standards for beauty. Social media is causing mental health issues, and on and on. So we have to ask, is media toxic? In 1958, the National Association of Broadcasters banned subliminal advertising because it was considered deceptive, which made it illegal. In many ways, media is nothing but subliminal messages, flashing nonstop, whether it's a digital billboard on the highway or an ad on Facebook or TikTok. In the 1930s, William Randolph Hearst controlled the largest media empire in the country. He used his media empire like a toy, emphasizing sensationalism and human interest stories over stories of substance and value. To this day, sensationalized fluff sells way better than hard news. With just a push of a button, we choose what we allow into our minds. Every time we click on any social media platform, network show, or streaming service, we're opening the gate to our minds and allowing content to flow in. Whether we want to admit it or not, we are being influenced day in and day out. When it comes to our emotional development, religion plays a major role. Religion is very important to most of us. Less than 10% of the world's population is non-religious, which means 90% of us are religious. Even if you're from a non-religious family, your belief system has been impacted by religion. Most laws are based on the 10 Commandments. Religion is part of the ether in the air. It's been handed down to us from generation to generation since the beginning of time. So what does religion teach about sexuality? According to Christianity, God created sex for procreation, and the pleasure from sex gives us the motivation to do it. The Bible also taught that homosexuality is wrong and that sex outside of marriage is worthy of death. Yet, unmarried people have sex, people cheat on their spouses, and gay people seek their own kind. So what we are taught and what we do are completely out of alignment. Being out of alignment doesn't feel good and can send us into a spiraling loop of despair. If we feel bad, we want something to relieve the discomfort. A relief could be sex, or a drug, or a drink, or food, or some combination of all of them. The pleasure from the bad thing makes us feel good momentarily, but when we come down from the pleasure high, we feel bad all over again. So naturally, we need another pleasure high. And there we are, stuck in a loop. Guilt and shame and bad behavior are often a learned behavior that is handed down generation to generation, creating that loop of personal destruction. The hippie movement of the 1960s brought in the New Age movement, which embraces all religions and ancient teachings. The New Age practitioners try to find a harmonic balance between personal development and sexual development. New Agers want to have a spiritual life and a sexual life. New Agers seem to be better equipped at reconciling spiritual beliefs and human behaviors because their beliefs are outside of religion and more about spiritual enlightenment rather than following doctrines. New Age theory and practice has saturated media and is firmly imprinted in American culture. Some people consider a spirit world or an inner world a bunch of baloney, and some people see it as a journey to explore. Either way, we have been influenced by the New Age movement. In order to break the bad patterns of our past and live a life that is completely authentic and self-directed, we must create our own path. We should not see ourselves as a replica of our family. We don't want to behave mindlessly and just follow without challenging ourselves as to why. We should see ourselves as part of a family that is evolving. Each family tree has branches. Make your branch what you want it to be.
You're listening to the podcast, Sexual Intelligence, Don't Leave Home Without It. We hope you enjoyed today's commentary. Now we are going to open up the conversation to our guest panel of experts.